Hey guys, Ralph here. True Power, Trumpet Fitness. Yeah, it's mid-afternoon, about 2:30. I've already done some kettlebell classes. I taught a couple Skype lessons. Rode my bike, ran, did some kettlebells. I practiced. I'm exhausted. Actually, no, I feel fabulous. But anyway, let's get to it and talk a little bit about Louis Armstrong. Okay. Anyway, yeah, what can we say? Double season Arbin. You can't go wrong. Anyway, Louis Armstrong. Yeah, I mean, what more can I say about this icon of music? Everybody knows about his upbringing in New Orleans, and everybody knows about his musical start at a home for homeless boys, and his influence by Buddy Bolden and all the greats down in New Orleans, and how he's risen to iconic fame. And far be it from me to try to explain to you about his place in the pantheon of the great American art form. I mean, that's absolutely silly. There's certainly documentaries galore. There's books galore. There's music history. I mean, why go into that? Okay? This channel is about chops, and let's talk about his chops. What do you say? Now, first of all, I think it's safe to assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's safe to assume Louis Armstrong was probably the first screamer. What do you think? Certainly that's not all he did, but the whole thing with his upper register and the center of his tone and his power and all, which was all legendary, was actually quite new at the time. He was solid up to about an F sharp. Very solid, which was something to be said back at that time. And there was also reports that at a performance in Germany, he did literally 100 straight high C's that just freaked out the audience. Everybody thought it was a fake trumpet. He was singing. It was somehow piped in or something, even though they didn't do that back then. I mean, everybody thought it was some sort of a gimmick. But those were his chops, and there wasn't a lot of that going on then. So I'm not going to call it a screamer in the traditional sense, but his upper register and the liberal use of upper register within the context of his music was very much at the forefront of trumpet players at that time. Okay, so a screamer, no, but tremendous, tremendous chops. Now, if you listen to his recordings, and granted, they're not all great. They're all preserved, and they are scratchy, and they're fuzzy, and all this sort of stuff. But man, could those guys play. Oh, my God. I'm not even a jazz aficionado, so I'm not going to break down his chords and chordal structure and all that sort of stuff. That's not what I'm playing. But tight and precise and just fabulous, and tempos, just exquisite musicians. And to think that most of them were primarily self-taught. Yes, they had mentoring from different people, but to sit down and actually take lessons and learn key signatures and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't a formal education to the point that we had. It really wasn't. So again, that was extraordinary in itself. But the chops were absolutely legendary up to that point. Now, Cat Anderson came along and Maynard Ferguson and dwarfed it, but up to that point, that was pretty edgy stuff that he was doing. Now, how did he get this? And everybody's going to ask, why did his chops look so mangled? How could he have such great chops? And I'll tell you what, everything that I've learned, now, his chops he was doing what we were doing. Now, first of all, he's a very, very small guy. He was only about 5'5". He gave the impression, since he was so barrel-chested and whatnot, that he was a big guy. He wasn't. He was very, very small, and certainly not in great shape. He was overweight. I know he struggled with diabetes for a certain period of time. He also smoked like a stack. I mean, he was not a physical specimen in the traditional sense, yet he played so powerful. And the endurance was legendary and whatnot. I think that had something to do with his mangled chops. We'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, if you look at his chops, once again, lack of tension in the corners leads to a very, very thick, relaxed top lip. And if you look at this is quite a good picture of that. Those are absolutely beautiful chops. And if you compare it to my man Maurice, who has beautiful looking chops as well as playing chops. Not all chops look great, but they usually have that one quality: true power, a thick, relaxed top lip. And he definitely had that. So he was not squeezing in the corners, okay? And he definitely, I've heard it written many times, he was definitely tonguing through the teeth. He used to complain that the vibration of the lips would tickle his tongue when he was playing. It was absolutely through the teeth. That's why his articulation was so bing. They used to pop just as like Harry James, man. I mean, he really, really had great chops. Now, this mangling of his chops, where did that come from? Well, I have two theories. First of all, he was probably using some god-awful mouthpieces. And the legend works that he literally used to take a razor blade. I can't even talk about it. And cut the scar tissue off. I mean, it was literally like a callus right there on the lip. Okay? And I don't know if that's true or not. I've read that. But gives me the creeps just to think about it. Anyway, I'm sure he's using some god-awful mouthpieces that were probably very, very sharp, okay? And I know for a fact, if you listen to him, he would play all day. Remember, these guys didn't have two nickels to rub together. They really didn't. But they did have work. So these musicians down in New Orleans, and certainly when he went globetrotting and became a superstar, it was a different thing. But when he was just pounding the streets and doing equivalent of a freelance thing down in New Orleans, they just worked all day. If it was a funeral, if it was a party, if it was tea and crumpets they played all day. And they did not say, "Oh, I can't do the job. My chops are tired." No. They needed the money they didn't need. Now, they actually, relative to the rest of their society down there, they lived quite well because they were working. And in the clubs and everything, they could make some tips. Okay, and they're actually treated as stars within their own community. And certainly, when he went, for lack of a better term, viral, he again was treated like the king that he was. Now, I have a little different caveat. My cousin on my mother's side is one of the greatest singers that ever lived. And if you've never heard of her, you should. Just as much as Louis, you should go listen to him. You should go listen to Eileen Farrell. Okay? That's my cousin. Now, she's not with us anymore. She's back in Louis' time. And she was an absolute star. At the Met, she sang soprano as well as mezzo-soprano roles. Equally as great. You should hear her sing. And everything down to commercial. She had her own radio show in New York City. She was an absolute star. She had her own TV program for a while. And she actually sang jazz. Now, she did not scat sing like Ella Fitzgerald. She did a little bit of it, but it wasn't as great as that. But her interpretations and the beautiful tone and everything was she sang jazz. Now, she used to fill in for Louis Armstrong. Louis asked for her personally when he couldn't make a date, whether he was sick towards the end of his career or in his life and everything, where he was not doing well. She used to sub for Louis Armstrong, go into all these clubs and everything and sub for Louis Armstrong. Now, needless to say, she did do jobs with him, okay? And she was telling me, and I got to know her quite well before she passed away, she used to tell me that it was absolutely hideous to hear the poor guy warm up. He was so beat up and so stiff and so sore. When she first heard him, she said, "Oh my God, how are we going to play the job when they go for a sound check or a rehearsal or something? How can we?" Nobody seemed to care. Nobody seemed to bother anybody but her. And she was mortified. How the heck are we going to do this? And sure enough, by the time the show came up, he was wailing. But she could not believe what this poor guy had to go through because of the mangled chops to actually warm up. Okay? Something to think about. But the chops were spot on up to an F and F sharp. Just absolutely fabulous. Articulations, tone, power. I mean, he used to talk about Buddy Bolden being able to hear miles down the Mississippi River when he would play on the riverboats and stuff, and he would try for the same thing. I mean, power just, and again, he was not a big guy. Tongue through the teeth, relaxed corners, not much air, and the legend was born. So there you go. I'm sure everybody has their own references of how Louis affected their careers and influenced them and all this sort of stuff. So let's hear it down below in the comments. And if you want to send it to my email, we can do that. But that's that. So I will try to get one out this weekend, but this might be the last one for the week. So if nothing else, I will see you on Monday. Penn State, Ohio State, tomorrow, 3:30 on Fox. Don't miss it. Get your popcorn, organic popcorn, no butter, and watch the game. Enjoy. Love you all. Have a great day and live your life with true power.